That was the first mailbag episode. Thomas, you did a great job.
It was glorious. I thought that I was going to have the right cut that wouldn't show my messy room, and it turns out it was the wide angle, so now I got to clean my room.
Lessons for next time. I also got to do a little bit of straightening up, but someone that's going to get us right on social media in general. We have Blythe Brumleve here, host of Cyberly, joining us for this segment on FreightWaves Now. Blythe, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here, and happy early Memorial Day weekend.
Definitely getting ready for it. Talking about the social media game, there's something called the 95-5 rule and how it's applied to freight. For those who don't know, what is the 95-5 rule?
So the 95-5 rule is essentially you're thinking about your marketing plan from a different lens. And when you think about your marketing plan, you want to think about what the journey is like for the overwhelming majority of people that are not in a buying cycle. And so that's where the 95% comes from. Only about 5% of people are ever going to be in a buying cycle at any given time. And that's a B2B stat from a new study from LinkedIn that was just dropped earlier this week that talked about how marketers need to be shifting their focus and promoting content that appeals to the 95% so that when they do become that 5% and they're ready to buy, that they will think of your brand first. So a couple different ways to think about this is what we've been talking about, especially with dark social. When you see something on social media, when you see something that catches your eye, what's the first thing you do? You take a screenshot, you send it in a Slack group, you send it to your friends, and you talk about it. And then what happens from that user's perspective is they go to the internet and they do a Google search for whatever that content was, and then they arrive on your site and they see it. So from a marketer's perspective, if I see that kind of data, if I see people Googling my company name or Googling a specific set of keywords and they come to my site, I'm going to automatically think that lead or that potential prospect is coming from Google search. So what I might do is instead of create more content, I might go instead and just put a bunch of money into Google search, SEO, when in reality, that wasn't the actual buyer journey. So that's kind of what like dark social is. And so this 95-5 rule sort of encapsulates that, where you need to be thinking about your social media from the goal of consumption, and that you're advertising to and you're sending out messages to that 95% that isn't ready to buy. I had a post up on LinkedIn earlier today that talked about, the different ways that you should be thinking about your social media. And first things first is when you're posting to these accounts, you need to be posting with the idea that someone is going to consume it on that platform. They're not going to leave. They're not going to, download your ebook or, book a demo. These are the common mistakes that I see happening on social media, especially on LinkedIn. But if you over time educate your audience, build that trust and authority by posting relevant, valuable content that speaks to their problems, then you're speaking to that 95%. And then when they become part of that 5% and they're ready to buy, you win before that lead ever gets to Google, ever gets to your competitor. And so that's where the 95-5 rule happens.
And Blythe, that's amazing. So can you talk to that a little bit more? Because I can only imagine sometimes when someone posts something on social media, there are all these hoops to jump through before you can even get to the content that you were looking to consume. And then by that time, you're already disengaged and you don't want to be a part of it. You don't have that trust built up anymore. Can you talk to that a little bit more?
Sure, especially with freight companies, I think that this is something that's going to be a growing issue for a lot of companies is when they think that they want to start posting to social media. And the first thing that they do is they go and they get a bunch of different social media accounts and they tweet or they post from the company LinkedIn page. And that's the first step that they should take. When in reality, it should actually be your staff that is doing this, the sales calls that your team is having. A perfect example of that is, you have a prospect call with one of your prospects and you're recording it on Zoom. You might not be able to, unless you have, permission from the person that you're talking to share the question that they ask, but you can always share your response to it. And so from that lens, freight companies can record these conversations, not only for internal quality and internal, how could I improve this, objection that the customer or the prospect had in order to further them down the line of hopefully hopefully making that sale. And so if you try to move them through the funnel using that different content strategy, but what you can also do is also set up the breadcrumbs on your own social media account. So freight brokers and freight agents, carriers to an extent, service providers within freight, all of them can take this approach, record your own reaction and your answer to that question, and then upload only that reaction to it with a little bit of background text on why this objection happened, or how you worked through a problem. These are different use cases of how you can use social media in order to combat these questions that maybe your prospect doesn't even know that they should be asking. And so you're building up. So when they see something, maybe a freight broker posts something about a shipment that you should know. Here are 3 things that you should know about, I don't know, shipping ice cream, for example. So when you post that, maybe there are other frozen customers out there that see that and they didn't know that. So they automatically like your content, then they want to engage with it, and then they will start building up what's called that. I like to call it like a content snowball, and it just builds up over time so that when they are ready to price shop, when they are ready to look for other suppliers and other vendors, then you're the person that comes to mind first because you've already been sharing that valuable insight. So I would look to those sales and prospect calls in order to be sort of the fuel that serves all of your marketing messaging, because you're getting those questions, you're getting those comments directly from your prospects. And if that prospect is asking that question, there's a chance that several other prospects within that same sort of commodity or equipment, they're probably going to be asking that question in the future.
I really like it because I feel like what you're kind of talking about with the 95-5 rule is you're working towards information and reciprocity. So you're providing this free information, the trust comes, the authority comes, then I'm going to reciprocate and think about you next. Final question here, looking at it. Do you think that the future with TikTok and everything, is it something where I see a lot of posts and reports, should these companies try to do more multimedia and do more of these reaction videos in addition, or is there a specific strategy?
1000%. The best social, so with a lot of companies right now, they think that when they join social media, they need to be promoting to all of the different channels, when in reality, you should actually be posting to the accounts that you get the most organic bang for your buck before you spend advertising money. And even before, I would say, even getting involved with social media, make sure that the leads can actually convert on your website when they're ready to buy. You don't want to spend all that time and energy on a social media campaign or a marketing or advertising campaign if conversion isn't already set up on your website. So that's first thing first. Make sure your website forms work. And then that next step is using these platforms like TikTok, like LinkedIn, to where you can get your message out there and you don't have to worry about being everything to everyone on every single platform. And so if you're focusing on the platforms that have the most organic reach right now, those are LinkedIn and TikTok. For the other platforms, I mean, Instagram, you could probably play around with that, but you would get much more bang for your organic buck if you went the route of the platforms that have, the most organic reach. A LinkedIn post, if you do a LinkedIn post well enough, it has a shelf life of a week. And TikTok videos, older videos can go viral, can get, more interaction, because TikTok is a platform that prioritizes content first versus other social media platforms where they prioritize your friends and your family and your connections first. It's kind of a reverse situation. So as long as you sort of know the nuances, and the only way to know the nuances is to actually live in those platforms, which is you can't really devote that kind of time to learn those nuances to all of these platforms. So pick one, maybe two. And right now, the biggest bang for your buck is LinkedIn and TikTok.
Blythe, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. People want to check your Cyberly show out. What time can they look at that?
2 p.m. every Thursday. We've got a couple really great interviews coming up with Grace Sharkey, and then also with Mary O'Connell. We recorded those live at the Future of Supply Chain conference that we just had a while back. So kind of getting the inside behind the scenes eye of what it's like to be a freight creator and how they sort of manage that in addition to the day job.
Awesome, Blythe. We'll be checking that one out. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Right now, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back with more FreightWaves Now.